Okay, I think we can start now, right?
Yeah,
Everyone is ready, right? Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Um, Assalamualaikum and a very good day to all present today. Welcome to the first round of English debate competition InterVarsity Science e-debate challenge 2021. The motion for this debate is in light of the short film, Save Ralph, this house regrets the use of animals in scientific research. I will be the chairperson and the timekeeper for room number one. Let me now introduce the debaters to you. Acting as the government team for this debate is the team from UTP with Miss Melson or Mr. Melson, Miss Melson as the
Mr.
Prime
Nelson.
Minister, Mr. Melson as the Prime Minister, Mr. Zulfadli as the Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Miss Fifi as the Government Whip, and the reserve is Mr. Zulfadli. Acting as the opposition team for this debate is the team from Swing, with Mr. Raihan as the opposition leader, Mr. Haris as the second opposition speaker, Mr. Afdal as the opposition whip, and the reserve is Mr. Raihan. Our panel of adjudicators consists of Mr. Patrick So William from UKM KL and Mr. Amirul Haikal bin Muhammad Razaimi from UKM. Okay, before we begin, I will briefly explain the rules. The first one, sensitive issues related to religion, racism, and touching a person's personality are prohibited. The use of Quranic verses and hadith to strengthen argument is strictly prohibited. Each debater may speak for 7 minutes. Time will begin to count as the debater begins to speak. The bell will be rung once at the end of the first minute to indicate that POIs are allowed to be asked by the opposing bench. Meanwhile, at the end of the sixth minute, the bell will be rung once to indicate that the time allocated for POIs has ended. The bell will be rung twice at the end of the 7 minute to indicate that the debater's time has expired. For the reply speech session, both teams will be given 1 minute as preparation time before making their respective reply speech. At the third minute of reply speech time, the bell will be rung once. In the fourth minute, the bell will be rung twice to indicate that the time for the reply speech has ended. While the debater is speaking, the opposition team can apply POIs in the form of question, statement, facts, explanations, or correction microphone or on or raise hand papers to alert the speaker for POIs. No POIs are allowed during the reply speech session. If the debater loses internet connection during the debate, the debaters are given 10 minutes to return to the debate session. When the debater successfully returns to the debate session, the debater can continue the debate where they stop and there are no deduction marks. If the debater is unable to enter the room after 10 minutes, the next debater from the opposition team will continue the debate session. Debaters are reminded to ensure internet access is available and in good condition for the smooth running of the debate session. Victory will be awarded to the team that gets a majority vote from the panel of adjudicators. The decision of the panel of adjudicators is final. Now we come to our debate today. To open the case from the government team, I call upon the Prime Minister to start the debate session.
Hi, am I audible?
Kejap ya, saya tekan sekejap. Hmm.
Can I start?
Kejap Sorry.
Okay.
But my laptop is lagging. Kejap Mr. Nelson. How can I turn it on? It's not here. Why is it not? Mm. Where's Mr. Nelson? Is it this?
Yes, I'm here.
Mm. Kejap, I don't. Oh my god. I'm sorry for this delay.
Oh, no
I can
worries.
bring. Ayuh,
Just do let me know when I can start.
kejap. Okay. Oh, why I tak boleh tarik? Sekejap ya. Hi. Have you in the screen
Hello.
already, Mel?
Yes. Okay. Can I start?
Can you see the timing?
Yeah, I can see the timer.
It's up already, You can see,
Yeah, it's up on the screen. Yes.
All right. Okay, I think you can start now.
Okay. Just a few seconds. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Starting my speech in three, two, one. We tell you that here on site government, every living thing deserves the right to live, and that includes the animal's rights to live within the first place, right? So what's happening right now in status quo, right? In status quo alone, right, we've seen thousands and thousands of animals that were used in research and scientific purposes that involves pain and suffering towards them, where painkillers and sedatives would be placed upon them and to be administered by certain big corporations in the first place, right? But what happens now in status quo? We have seen now that the medical industry such as big pharma and all are already moving to other sorts of alternative in doing this, such as computer simulation, cells regenerations, and human tissues regenerative in the first place, right? Why is this better, right? And this is our alternative at the same time, right? Why is this better, right? Because number one, they are proven to be far more effective without actually harming animals or without actually using animals in the first place. They're far more proven to be more effective without having to administer pain on the real organism itself within the first place, right? The first alternative that we bring up to you here is computer simulations, right? Computer simulation includes simulations such as having computerized models of the heart, lungs, and kidneys with sufficient data in it to conduct virtual experiment based on existing information and mathematical data that is already in place within the computer database in the first place. Seconds are cell regeneration purposes, right? Where we are able to get human cells of our human bodies in a certain place, where scientists are able to manage to grow these kinds of cells into 3D structures that mimics the actual movements of your heart or your real life organs, that is far more effective into treating these kinds of into treating and researching these kinds of medicines in the first place, instead of using animals' lives in the first place, right? Thirdly, are human tissues that we are able to get from surgeries and
POI,
post-mortem of
please.
brain tissues. And these are the human skins that are going to be done within experimentation. But before that, yes.
How do you actually know that computerized models can actually show unprecedented or what do you call that, sudden abrupt changes in the human heart or something like you just said just now?
Because
How can
these
you
are
tell?
all right. Okay. These are computer models that have already been within the industry for a long time, right? And if it doesn't even, if it's not good, right, we don't think companies such as Big Pharma or the medical industry moving into these kinds of alternative within the first place, right? Because these are machines that have already known the data of these human cells, right? We plucked out human cells, we placed them back into the data in the first place, right? Okay. What is happening in status quo right now is that these testing that's being done onto animals are far more detrimental, because animals then now goes into the lives, or they lose their lives in the process of these testing. So this includes losing their organs, becoming brain dead, or losing their eyesight and the things to remember, right? Which moves on to my biggest principal argument is, why is it so important to uphold this human right within the first place, right? Because animals can also experience pain such as human, right? If it is in the certain circumstances that it is true that a life should be sacred and it should be spared, then we could say to the extent of it that animal lives here in of it itself also matters, and this animal deserves the right to live in the first place, right? Yeah, before that, yes.
Are you okay with eating meat, like butchering, food processing? Are you okay with that?
We tell you that those kinds of stuff are a different sort of debate in the first place, right? And if there's an alternative to it, I think we would all choose to have that alternative in that certain kind of structure, right? And even on a basis, right, the process of you butchering and eating meat in of it itself isn't to that extreme pain and suffering that these animals go through in this medical process in order to obtain the medicine and the research that you need in the first place, right? Okay, moving on, right? These animals are defenseless and they cannot be are defenseless being, and they cannot fend for themselves within the future, right? Just because they don't have the equivalent IQ, or they're not as smart as what humans can be, this doesn't mean that their animal rights should be neglected within the first place, right? The impact of this, right, is proven that animals go through excruciating pain throughout this medical research, and they would be faced with mental trauma via these kinds of testing, right? So what happens here on a comparative, right? We tell you on a comparative right now that op is okay with a world where people constantly excruciate suffering on other personal, on
POI
other beings such as animals for their very own personal gain, right? We tell you that in of it itself, it's that selfish for op to have in the first place. No, I won't be taking a POI. Moving on, right? Why is the alternative that already existed and already available to human is far more beneficial to us in the first place, right? Because understand that the alternative now can still be used to create even more effective products and even more effective medicines in the first place with data that are far more comprehensible than what the human brain can process in the first place. We tell you that all of this now are being done by machines, right? And moving on to the next thing, the next analysis is the idea that the animal testing in of it itself is very, very costly. So most of these animals, it's very, very costly, and it's excruciate pains towards this kind of animal in the first place. We tell you that most of this animal testing that happens today revolves around the cosmetic industry, which only recently existed, right? This looks like putting harmful products onto them to see whether it's fit for human consumption or human life to be able to put within this kind of thing. We tell you that this selfless act is in of it selfish in order for you to gain your personal gain within the first place, right? These human values that we value, that preventing suffering makes us who we are, and we don't think that these human values that we have within ourselves just stops within the line of human in of itself. We tell you that this goes stretch out to the extent of preserving animal lives within the first place, right? It is unbelievable that how we dehumanize the gains of this, dehumanize the rights of this animal, dehumanize animals within the first place, and torture them for the sake of for the sake of the selfless act of humans being able to gain such profit and within the cosmetic industry within the first place, right? So this is the comparative on op. Op is okay with sacrificing their gains, sacrificing human gains. They are okay with the acts that they are doing, and to achieve gains for their nation and for the people that they live in within the first place. Therefore, we tell you that side government is not being as selfless as it is inside than side opposition.
Hi, Mr. Wilson. Are you still talking? Or is it lagging?
Oh, I think he's done. Can we know the time?
Yep, I'm done.
It's already 7. It's already 7. I'm sorry for the timing is kind of lagged, so I'm really sorry. It couldn't appear on the screen.
It's okay. Can you just tell me
Can
the
I
total time?
It's about 7 minutes and 10 seconds.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Can I start or do I wait?
Okay, let's continue. Thank you for that speech. Uh, Thank you for that speech, Prime Minister. To open the case from the opposition team, I call upon the leader of opposition to continue the debate session.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Am I okay?
Yes.
All right, cool. I'm gonna start. 3, 2. Listen, right? I think if the PM speech was more of a campaign on why veganism is better than eating meat, I think he would score an impressive 90 speaker score. Unfortunately, government has missed out a large chunk of this debate by talking about animal cruelty and the specifics on who it's supposed to be testing for, right? I have a lot of clarifications, but I'll just move on straight into rebuttals, right? First, he says that animals have the rights to live. I say, sure, they do. And he also says that now corporations hurt them and they torture them and all that jazz, right? Understand that the reason why animals are used in the first place is because we have no gauge onto whether or not they will feel hurt. At most, they will scream. At most, they will like, meh. At most, they will croak. but like there's no optimal gauge as to whether an animal's like life is at harm. And for the large part of it, it's much safer testing on an animal than it is testing on a human. I'll get more into this later on. But then he also comes up with the alternative as computer simulations and big corporations investing in machines, right? By for medical testing, right? But then I don't understand. Then if we have all this technology, then why is it that we would still revert back into animal testing? If this concept is so proven and it's so effective, then why are we still having this conversation on like animal cruelty? I don't think corporations would needlessly go out of their way to harm animals, because in modern times I think people have recognized that harming animals bad, you don't do it, right? Also just note to the adjudicator or people in this room that that's such a high burden to prove, right? That there's this magical like simulation, or I don't know, some form of like a computerized system where you're automatically able to garner the same effects as what we have now. Like if so, I don't think we would be having coronavirus right now. I'm just to say it outright, right? I don't think that we would have as much medical advances by using computer simulations, because we just don't have that technology yet, right? And secondly, look, theory doesn't always equal to practical use. That's why like hospital like people have like residency in order to gauge whether they're able to use whatever they applied in their books like to practice. Same thing here. Just because you inject like a simulation of how cancer cells are able to be killed off in this one like hollow like matrix thing, it's not probably going to apply in real life, because every human is different. Every human has a different genetic code. There's so much you can randomize within like computer simulated processes. Secondly, he also talks about how there is a principle between human and animal rights. And this is where I go into my POI as to talking about why exactly they're okay with food processing, but they're not okay for animal testing on this. It's because they missed the main chunk of this debate. The distinction in this debate is the fact that we're using this for an eventual gain that we can't obtain from anywhere else, right? If they want to talk to me about an alternative of food, you can go vegan. But I think half of us in this room are not vegan just because we do not like meat. Meat is great. Same thing here. We do not have any alternatives, therefore we have to resort to this. It is not pretty. We concede that some animals might be harmed, but it is one of the more effective ways we have to go about it, right? Also, this is one argument that he just kind of shot himself in the foot off by saying that animal testing is costly, which, one, if it's costly, then why do companies still do it if they're profit incentivized? And also two, on a comparative, he never explained why if we're taking his like mechanism into like its full face value, then why do big corporations still use like animal testing if it's so costly, if they also have very costlier technology which they would need to invest in and stuff like that? Like, I don't see what this argument is like probably going to like lead to, right? Like, it's just weird. They just shot themselves the foot with that, right? But if we take their best case scenario and we say that, okay, sure, there's going to be an eventual matrix system where you are able to cure cancer, then we'll tell you that's probably really expensive and only like a handful of corporations will only be able to access that. And then you have price monopoly, and then you have people unable to access these resources in the first place, which makes like what do you call that? Distribution of these medicines or whatever even like harder, because you have only one company that has access to all that, right? Cool. Government kind of gone. All right, what am I going to do in today's speech? In the next 3 minutes, I'll talk about one main thing, the distinction as to where testing is actually used. Understand that we're not going to be using testing everywhere, right? Corporations right now have to follow a lot of strict regulations, and even if they want to publish their eventual research, people will find out how that like methodology was used, right? So government cherry picks that, oh, this is used in cosmetic like makeup and stuff like that. And yeah, we can see it, like stuff like that does happen. But A, you already face backlash from like this general public because you can't be doing that in 2021 right now. And B, he never talks about the medical industry, which I think is the main crux of the debate, right? The fact that to literally get antibodies from snakes, literally protect humans from snake venom, you have to get antibodies, which the process is generally you have to, inject that venom or small amount of that venom into animals, so animals build herd immunity, because animals just have a much better antibody immune system rather than humans, right? It's much efficient and much less dangerous to humans. So if they want to fight on the fact that animals also deserve the right to live, then we also tell you that I don't think we should be injecting in like venom blood into humans, which have a tremendously lower antibody system than animals do, right? I know humans are just devolving, animals are way better, go animals, right? Okay, next, I'll just talk about the effectiveness of why animals are better in use for medical progression, but also fight like later on the worst case, why even on the medical industry, without the medical industry, why testing on animals is still something that's okay. Understand that animals have a much lower life expectancy than humans do, right? Okay, this is a bit more scientific, but just let me breathe for a bit. Like, if your alternative isn't computer stuff like that, and it's actual human regulations or human clinical trials, you will have a much lower sample size compared to the amount that you will get with animals, right? And understand that the humans that you will be eventually getting are probably people who won't be the proper demographic, people who have different genetic codes, people who do not have the, I don't know, have different lifestyles or whatever.
6
Most
minutes.
importantly, they will probably demand for monetary compensation. You aren't able to pick up humans from the street and say like, hey, you want to run some tests and expect them to do it for free, right? You're probably going to incur much more cost than you will on animals. Are we saying that's fair? Probably not. Probably there's some like principal burden. Like I know this whole motion is against opposition as a whole, and and government has like a principal high ground on us. But understand that if there is an eventual net benefit or net gain that we are able to accrue from it, i.e., things we've already done, i.e., anti-venom bodies, i.e., a lot of vaccines, a lot of flu shots that have been accrued from animal testing, then we tell you that that is to a certain extent justified. But also, if it doesn't work, or if animal testing is something that's still to be frowned upon, we tell you that corporations nowadays will have to be way more stricter to how they do it because they will have general public backlash. Because understand that when researchers publish this research, they want their names to be on it. They are not going to show the fact that, hey, my name is Ahmad Raihan and I just killed 50 cows in order to cure cancer. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're probably
7
going to be
minutes.
much like stringent. They're going to be much more chill with the way they test, or even in the worst case, I think there's a net benefit to humanity. For all those reasons, I don't know, go humans. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. The timing was 7 minutes and 16 seconds.
Sorry, Alia, do you
Yes, I am.
have a bell, or do you have anything to like signal us when the 1 minute, 7 minute mark has been passed?
I should tunjukkan video patutnya, tapi sebab laggy, so I cannot open the video. But
Okay. Can you clap? Let's say it reaches 1 minute. Just give one clap. Okay. Is that alright?
Okay, boleh.
Okay.
Yes.
And 7 minutes, 2 claps. All right.
7 minutes, 2 claps. 1 minute, 1 clap.
Yeah.
Is it correct? All right. Okay. Thank you.
Please.
All right.
Thank
I will. All right. Okay, I'll continue. I would like to thank the speaker for their speech. To continue our debate today, I call upon the Deputy Prime Minister to continue the case for their side.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Give me a moment.
All right.
I actually prefer POIs in the chat box. I'll have it open. Going to unmute. Give me a moment. So if you have any POIs, just use the chat box instead of unmuting. I'm just set up by my. All right. All right, cool. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. The biggest chunk of analysis that was missing completely out of the opposition is the reason as to why corporations do this. He only prefaced all his responses by saying, "Oh, actually, why do corporations do it?" I'll tell you why. It is because these corporations are genuinely believe that they'd rather cut as much cost as they can, and just because of the fact that it makes them like more profits, and they feel that killing animals and actually imposing not just like small amounts of suffering but major amounts of suffering, as you can see in the video, is justified so that they could fill their own pockets, right? When Melson tells you that the animal research is costly, he's actually telling you that because of the notion of the fact that other corporations have been investing into all this torture for so long, and they are actually continuing to do so. The video the video actually highlights how corporations are very malicious. They're able to actually hide the fact that they are, as to how they torture animals. They're actually able to hide away and actually lobby off all these inspections as to how this corporation actually still be able to garner so much profits and actually have so much on marketing level, and how they get away with all this torturing of rabbits and other animals and so forth. Right? I think there was a huge chunk of analysis missing from the opposition as to how that although he already considered the principle high ground, he had to actually prove as to how these benefits are actually guaranteed under opposition's world, whereas that Melson already made it clear that this sort of benefits still exist under our world, right? My extension is simple. The comparative in this debate is basically which world is much better, a world where human actually upholds their values and actually still be able to get some form of benefit, even though it could be incurred at a small loss of profits, or an opposition's world where they're willing to cast away all of these benefits, for some form of like very like probable and unconfirmed benefit, right? POI denied. So before that, a few responses. When leader opposition tells you that, oh, we do all these testings to get some form of like benefits towards the general populace, right? Recognize that when we already provide to you the alternative, like computer simulations or testing on human tissues, the verified the reason as to why this alternative exists is because we want to actually bridge the gap of actually being able to test without incurring any form of harms. The reason why corporations have done this is because oftentimes that this require human volunteers, and it's important to note that all this human testing and all this injecting antibodies to human doesn't actually require the humans to actually experience any form of pain. Removing like the examples that Nelson gave you, like post-mortem tissues, actually like human volunteers. Like human volunteers who won't actually feel any sort of pain when they have like a small skin sample taken out of them, like post-surgery tissue. All of this will incur no harm on the human, but will still be able to net you all the benefits, all the benefits that opposition claims to you, right? The problem with opposition is that they never tell you why animal testing gives you some form of exclusive benefit that is for the general populace, right? POI denied. So then he even tried to give another example talking about vaccines, right? Hello, vaccines. We also are using computer simulations. Recognize that vaccines, we're doing so much computer simulations, and we only started testing it on humans after we've reached like stage 2 or stage 3 of the clinical trials, right? Recognize that the medical world has already been pushing for all its alternatives, and the reason why we're talking about cosmetic industry is because of that Safe Ralph video, where they highlight that these people are still being able to get all their profits while still having all these rabbits like being injected with like horrible toxins, like feeling like losing memory, like feeling all these forms of torture, right? So now we cover as to why opposition is probable at best. Let's move to the comparative. Which world is better, right? As Melson mentioned to you earlier, these animals do deserve the right to live. That they also experience pain. I think it's completely untrue that that humans were unable to gauge the form of harm that they get. They don't just moo and they don't just croak. They croak in pain. They moo in pain. And it's already been conclusive studies, even done way before all these animal rights movement, to show that these animals actually feel severe amounts of pain. The reason why civil society actually took a while for its animal rights to actually propagate forward is because this corporation actually managed to actually tell the world that, hey, it's okay to kill animals because we're able to make money, or we get some of this probable benefits, right? Which I tell you why we still be able to claim on our side, right? Here's a few levels of analysis as to why. So we still regret this despite all these benefits, right? Recognize that number one, this human values of actually caring for, actually wanting to prevent pain, actually makes us who we are. You see that as to how like we're able to help other people. We are altruistic. We want to minimize pain as much as we can. It's in our human nature. Forgoing all of this nature just for the sake of profits is completely inhumane and actually wrong. And I don't know why opposition is okay with that, right? Sure, although we can see that animal trials may be cheaper or maybe be able to get the results that you want, we still think that these values should be held, or a notion that these benefits are probable, and that these benefits aren't actually guaranteed on the upside, and they've yet to give it an answer as to why. A lot of these things like vaccines, or a lot of these things like medicine, they're all very probable in nature, and we don't actually know the result we're going to get. Why is it that we should actually be guaranteeing like suffering onto animals for some form of probable benefit when you already have alternatives on the ground, right? Before I move on as to like the further comparative, I'll take one from Hello.
Coca-Cola literally dropped 40% in stock price because Ronaldo demonized the health benefits it had to human. If companies are found out animal testing, their stock prices, their everything will go down. Could you respond to the accountability that people have over corporations?
I spent the first minute of my speech telling you how corporates are very slick in actually like hiding all these atrocities happening, right? The Save Ralph, the Ronaldo are just high profile examples, but still hundreds of other companies are still out there doing all this testing without the knowledge of the public, and then they still be able to rent out all these profits and for all of this torture without any form of legal consequences or any form of consequences at the end of the day, right? That's the thing that opposition doesn't want to engage with and never want to respond to. Recognize that on our side, we still manage, like they still have no counterfactual towards the principal argument that we have. They've had to even concede towards it, and we still tell you that in terms of these benefits, it is important to note that we should not be guaranteeing harm towards other beings just for some sort of benefit, some sort of like probable benefit that we can already attain with our alternatives, right? We recognize that sure, these alternatives may be a bit more expensive, or these things take more time compared to animal testing, but we tell you that whether we're okay with that, because at the end of the day, we still be able to minimize harm towards humans, right? Towards animals. We are the side that actually upholds human values, and we are the side that still guarantees that should rather hold it over opposition's world. Proud to propose.
All right. The timing was 7 minutes and 14 seconds. 14 seconds. Okay, I would like to thank the speaker for their remarks. Now I call upon the deputy leader of opposition to continue the case for their side.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Just 1 second, eh? All right, I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. I don't really feel comfortable with what the government is trying to say, that we kind of hate animals in the sense, and it's entirely untrue in our case, because we want to present some things that we want to make you guys see in the light of why animal testing should be done instead of human testing, in vice versa. So basically, I would like to just rebut a few points from the Deputy Prime Minister, which is the first one on the corporations. They would rather cut costs instead of, but doesn't that kill the purpose of a corporation in general, because they actually want to make profits? Their main objective is to create a cure or a product, let's say a cosmetic product and so on, quickly, and not for the fun of killing animals. So the point is that the government is trying to make is just that we are trying to kill animals just for the fun of it. So I don't really agree with that. And also, you have mentioned that some people will lobby off inspections that they can get away with murdering rabbits, for example. And we do have regulations for that. The regulations exist. And if you want to say the same for human beings, also we can say that, because we don't know like how many countries are doing like human testings with it behind our backs, and we don't know anything about that. And there are regulations that are in set for animal testing. Okay, sorry. Okay, also on the just to touch on the costly part also is that it is not cost is not a huge problem for them, because human volunteers require more cost than animals, because for example we need financial reparations for humans. What if a human being die in the process? What do we say to the family members? How much do we pay, and what are the things that we have to do it? Why not we just test on animals which are less costly, and because I will touch on that after that, my point. But when you talk about how humans will actually react to the pain that has, let's say for the vaccine administered, trials administered towards them, do they feel pain on that? Do they make you feel jiffy in a sense? But in a way, that doesn't that actually put more risk towards human beings instead of just testing on animals, who actually will just react according to what the experiments need them to do, instead of just blindly, just, okay, I'm going to pick someone from this debate room and I'm just going to put a vaccine in them, just see if they die or not. So that's not the thing that we want to focus on. So other than that, we have, back to the regulation side that I talked about just now, that the UK have the RSCPA, which requires animal testing to be done for vaccine purposes or for any sort of medicine to be done on towards animals first before they can be licensed to use. And this is coming from a major, developed country in a sense. So how do you actually rebut this because they know. I mean, in like what the deputy of opposition leader has said. Opposition leader has said just now that we know that animal testing is bad for us, but we still do it, and these are the reasons why we do it. And I would like to talk about the points that we give you all today, which is on the first one, which is there will be no alternative to testing other than animals, and secondly on ethical considerations. So firstly, on the no alternative to testing, we need to understand that there will be danger of toxicity, there will be danger of mutation in the cells that we are trying to figure out. There will be danger of this having what they call the unexpected reactions to what the to the human being. So, and also we have invasive experimental testing. I don't think a majority of people will be much agreeable towards that notion, because we can see that there will be many reluctance among people, especially in the public, towards human trials. They say, oh, this is a form of what do you call that? This is a Freemason agenda, and some shit like that. Right? So I don't think that is something that we want to put on human beings, especially for something that is very, very important, such as cure for HIV or cancer or multiple sclerosis, and you name it, anything. So, and the thing is that we want to relate to animal testing and human testing is that the whole body system, the whole body system of animals, they are actually very much related to the human bodies, such as the central nervous system, endocrine system, and the immune system. So why not we use that for a lesser cost and lesser lesser time, just because of the fact that animals have shorter life cycles, such as mice and rats, which can live up to 2 years. So I don't think there'll be much of an issue on extinction or something like that, because we can selectively breed them. Before that, I would like to get a POI from Zulfadli.
Two things. Number one, that our alternatives doesn't incur any harm on humans because like it's from like the dead bodies. And number two, animals have very different anatomies from human. How reliable are your results under your work?
Okay, so first of all, when you say that you want to because the first speaker has said just now on the computerized models, how sure are you that the computerized models can actually give results that is very, very similar to real life testing, and very, very similar results which can actually make what do you call that, a medical breakthrough or something like that? Because we don't know from computers, because computers are actually programmed to do so, and they are not programmed to expect the unexpected, something like that. So basically, on the second one is ethical considerations. So basically, we have continuous feedback due to the changing methods of testing on animals. So I'm pretty sure that we have all the reports that there are to actually test whether this animal is reacting towards this one or reacting towards this one. And also we have regulated with laws, and due to this, we have more accountability by the researchers, which states that they are doing this in such a manner to actually not hurt the animals. And also, one last question that I will ask to the floor is, what would happen if a human being died instead of an animal? Which ground of principle are you talking about, and how do you actually respond to that? So thank you, and I rest my case.
Have you finished? The deputy
Yes,
leader of
I
opposition?
finished. Yes, I finished.
All right. The timing was 5 minutes and 50 seconds. Okay, I would like to thank the speaker for their remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, and the honorable adjudicators, I shall now call upon the government whip to rebut.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. As I'm speaking now, are you experiencing any lags or delays from my side?
No.
Okay.
Just to come back.
All right, give me a moment, yeah?
All right. Is there any problem?
I think she disconnected. Let me just go to check.
All right.
We're trying to make contact with her. Can you just give us like a few minutes?
Yep, sure. Oh, coba ada add dia kot. Sorry. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Fifi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Just now, was it disconnected?
Yep.
Okay, so now everything is fine, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll restart. I'm speaking. Is there any echo?
A bit, but it's okay. Dia tak teruk sangat.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll start my speech, yeah? I think it's totally unfair for the side opposition to blatantly disregard all of the alternatives that we've given to you in this debate. We've explicitly told you from my first speaker that there are many other alternatives that are emerging in this era. If not, we wouldn't have had vaccine being explored and discovered within record time in this era, right? Within something that could have been produced within like 3 years science and innovation that is currently emerging in today's era. With that level of logic, I think that it's impossible for you to say there are no other alternatives as opposed to animal testing, and it's unfair for you to say that computer simulations and all that doesn't work as opposed to animal testing. That is the biggest lie that we heard today from side opposition, where all of their allegations are based on the assumption that there are no alternative, something which we've already told you right from the beginning, and they never wanted to engage with us. They never wanted to concede that even if all these alternative works, why is animal testing still better under their side? But in comparison, we've already told you how these, for example, human cells, tissue, culture testing and all that have already been proven to be much better and effective, and it is much more similar to the to the physiological and biological effects of the human body, right? We think that okay, I think this is not just the idea of alternatives, but if it is feasible, would you want to do it on site opposition? Something which they never wanted to talk about in this debate. They just said, oh, there's no other alternatives, therefore go for animal testing. I don't know which century they're living in, maybe the 1960s, where they think that the only way out is to use animal testing, right? That point totally false. But second of all, there's a huge perceived misconception that human testing will mean that we're actually harming humans. That is totally false, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, we've already clarified to you that it's not actually human testing. It's actually getting human cells donated by humans with consent and that are actually proven to be safe. And we are not how is this different than animal testing? Animal testing, you don't get the animal's consent because they are not humans and they cannot talk to you, therefore they are defenseless. This is exactly why humans should have the incentive to protect them as tangible benefits greatly outweigh the harms that exist in today's status quo, right? But on the idea of human testing, right? We told you that for example, these samples of human tissues, right? They are actually taken from dead cells, for example, post-mortem brain tissues that are obtained from dead people, right? So there's no way for us to harm humans in the first place, right? So therefore, the whole idea of them coming up with this argument saying that there are financial reparations for humans, totally false, because we are not harming humans in the first place, and secondly, we are actually getting their consent before we even obtain those samples from humans, right? And then thirdly, on the whole idea of, oh, it's okay, we can actually test animals because we have safe regulations. But here's why these regulations don't work, right? Because, for example, these animal welfare standards are not necessarily complied to by every single country in the world. For example, countries that are less economically developed, that support these welfare they're not likely to support these welfare regulations because they want to go for something that is more affordable, that is more cheap. Therefore, they think they will resort for animal testing instead, right? Because it is much cheaper to torture animals rather than to abide to those welfare standards. Therefore, the whole idea of their rules and regulations and animal welfare standards totally false, right? We think that on the idea of ethical on the whole idea of ethics and higher moral high ground, government bench wins because first of all, we acknowledge that both all organisms have the right to be protected, not just human beings, but also for animals, right? So that on the whole idea of higher moral high ground, government bench wins. Well, secondly, on the whole idea of effectiveness and the tangible impacts that we have. But before that, I'll take any POI.
So just a clarification, we never said there were no alternatives. We said that your barrier of entry for your alternatives are stupidly high, i.e. the money, the research, the labor costs. Could you engage with that?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Your barriers of entry for your alternatives are very high, i.e. only big corporations are able to splurge on better technology to produce the same results. Could you please engage with that?
Yeah, so might as well ban animal testing as a whole, right? So even those countries who cannot afford to abide by those laws, they don't have to resort to animal testing. They can actually resort to other alternatives that we provided, right? So I think that on the idea of feasibility, I think that if the end goals are much more effective, which is we can actually have much better effectiveness, probability of success. I think that this can actually that there can actually be more focus on all these other alternatives rather than allocating your resources towards animal testing, right? So this is where the whole idea of effectiveness and tangible impacts comes in. So side opposition wanted to say about something about, if you don't take probably produce something that has lower antibody because animals have higher antibody. Number one, if computer simulations already work, then I think it's not impossible for you to replicate the same level of antibody for you to use upon humans, right? But second of all, even if that's a problem to you, I think you have already blatantly disregarded all the better impacts of using of using other alternatives as opposed to animal testing, right? I think that I think that you've not considered all the other benefits. For example, human beings getting much higher rates of success from other alternative testing. Computer simulations have actually proven to be working in status quo, right? Because computer simulations, they already have computer models of the heart, lungs, and other vital organs in the human body, which are being used in status quo. So I think that by the end of the day, the whole idea of animal testing here is because which side government has a higher incentive to have utilitarian benefit upon humans because we give you better alternatives that actually work and we don't suffer and torture anyone. Thank you.
7 minutes and 28 seconds. I would like to thank the speaker for that speech. It is now time to listen to the rebuttals of opposition whip. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Start my speech in 3, 2, 1. It's funny on government why they are okay to actually eat those meats, but they are not okay to actually test those animals. Because in the end, whatever they eat has a bigger amount on whatever this company actually tests the animal. So they are actually doing more damage toward the animal's life rather than actually testing those things, right? And about rules and regulation, there's always that there's already rules and regulation for the companies to follow to actually carry out animal testing rather than blindly go into animal testing without knows how the SOP should be done. For example, before you actually test on the animals, you need to actually inject some antibiotics, for example, to actually mitigate the harms on the animal itself, right? And even if that is true, like the corporations will always actually find a way to actually do animal testing. Because why? Because it involves a much cheaper cost, which they have never actually replied on that. And as an opposition, we see the bigger picture, right? We see that we need to protect not only the animals, but we actually need to protect even the other stakeholders, such as the corporation itself. And they were largely very unresponsive on actually protecting the other stakeholders because they are actually an advocate for actually animals, right? And they are not even humans, like whatever they're trying to say. And all right, on comparative, like they have said a lot of things regarding the effectiveness of simulation technology, as well as how it doesn't harm those animals, blah blah blah, mathematical model. But in the end, we need to acknowledge which model is actually more effective, whereby we actually depend 100% on mathematical model, which we know that mathematical model can't be exactly the same. You can't actually replicate some intricate stuff on the human heart, for example, to actually create 100% right simulation, and that's why it's called simulation. It's not something that is perfect, right? So they have never explained how they actually would want to cater for those kind of misjudgment on the machines, which in the end will actually affect the humans, and they're actually okay with that, which I'm not really sure, because maybe they don't even buy stuff that is untested, right? Probably. Yeah. So we feel that um, we cater more for humans, because humans could actually feel those pains if those mathematical model fails, and this human will actually feel the pains from those field testing, right? And this alternative that I mentioned is actually very unproven, because in the end, under our side, we actually fought for inclusiveness of actually having the simulation as well as the animal testing done, because with these two things combined together, will actually create a better outcome rather than solely depending on simulation and stuff like what they're trying to say. And they're trying to get consent from a dead body, which I'm not really sure how they want to get that, and probably not everyone will actually agree with that. So like what my first speaker have said, they probably have a smaller sample to test on, and you know what, a dead body is not the same as a live body, right? So the accuracy of the tell self is doubtful right there, and they have never engaged with the accuracy of the outcome if they were to continue with whatever they are doing, right? And on the moral high ground, they are really scared to actually do physical harms to the animal. They are really scared to actually inflict pain on the animals, or even they say that the animals have mental trauma, right? We see this as we concede it will happen, but in the end, which one will it be better in the long run? Because on our side, we cater for humans as well, and we do not neglect the rights of the animals, because there's actually rules and regulation to cater for that, and most corporation will follow that. And they have, and we believe that on our side we would cater, because humans will not get harm in the long term, such as getting they are dead by the vaccine, for example. Because if they are dead by the vaccines, no one will take the vaccines, right? Even right now, if you're talking about right now, people are not taking vaccines, maybe probably because they are right, they are doing only simulations, and that's why people are dying because of that, right? And comparatively, on the costly part, they have never engaged on the part whereby the cost will actually be increased on their side, because these people will actually push forwards for simulation models to be actually more technologically advanced, to actually cater for whatever harms they want to mitigate, right? At the end of the day, so this will effectively increase the cost of producing a product, and that will actually be detrimental to the stakeholders, because we can't really purchase the product, or in the worst case, we can't access vaccines to actually save our life, people. So those are the things they are fighting for, basically increasing the cost of these products. And at the end of the day, everyone can't be safe, everyone can't purchase anything. And what happens to that? Then they have never engaged on the economical side, whereby the economical impact of people not purchasing those products, etc. Right? And at the end, what we have proven to you, it's always better on our side, because we have proven to you that in terms of effectiveness, we have clearly explained why is it more effective on our side, because we combine two models, which is the simulation as well as the animal testing, and not solely depends on animal testing in itself. And we have shown you the harms that is associated with only depending on the simulation models. And secondly, we have proven to you that on the moral high ground side, we actually have the moral high ground, because we cater for both humans as well as animals, and not only advocating for animals, because as I've explained before, there's rules and regulation for the corporations to follow when they want to do the animal testing, right? For example, inject some antibiotics or painkillers to the animals so that they don't feel the pain, for example, right? And on in terms of the cost, they say that our side is more costly, but they have never explained the journey whereby how that could happen, ladies and gentlemen, and they have never replied on that sentence. And but on hindsight, we have explained to you clearly why on their side is actually more costly, and it will actually in the end not making people be accessible to the vaccines, for example, and so forth. And we have explained to you on our side why those companies will actually be more accountable in a sense, because we have put the spotlight on these people so that they will not do they will not cross the line to, like for example, they are um, like not following the rules and regulation that were set by the governing body to actually carry out this animal testing, right? In the end, that is why we feel that we should take away with this debate. And lastly, right, and as of today, very proud to oppose. Thank you.
6 minutes and 50 seconds. Okay, now that we have heard all the three speakers from both teams, we shall take a short break of 1 minute. During this time, both the government and the opposition team will prepare the reply speech.
You're muted. We can't hear you.
Oh, thank you. Okay, now the time of 1 minute has ended. I should now invite the opposition leader from the opposition team to deliver the reply speech.
Test. Am I audible? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Cool. All right. I'm gonna start in 3, 2. Panel, just take note that humanity has never been humane. We as an entire species have literally bombed each other with nuclear weapons, gassed each other, and not in a good way. We've literally committed mass genocides on a daily basis, or even until now, by the way. Like, government's entire principle debate falls because it lacks impact as to why we should even have uphold humanity in the first place. But also, second, animals lives in priority to humans in terms of safety apparently are equal now. I think the main reason why we have animal testing is because that humans don't want to feel pain, and then after that, it's just a bunch of debate squirreling as to alternatives and whether they work, and very little nuance as to what this debate actually is about. So let me just respond to all this whole debate, or sorry, let me just summarize this whole debate as cleanly as possible in 3 ways. Number one, alternatives. This is the large chunk of government speech as where all their benefits accrue only come from their alternatives. Note that this should not fly, because if high technology works in the first place, then we would already be doing it. We would not have this debate. If we have access to this technology which accrues the same results, this literal debate does not work. Therefore, the contention that I brought to the table was the fact that there should be some form of barrier of entry, which are money, labor, research costs, which they said that, yeah, sure, if we have alternatives, let's do it. Let's use those alternatives. We can't use those alternatives because there are barriers of entry, understand? So only certain corporations will be entitled to it. Only certain corporations will be able to give out these said products at the end, and only certain people will be able to receive it because it is so stupidly high the cost will be so increasingly high, right? Also, look, we already conceded that animal testing is just as effective, and it may be cheaper, but it's used to a certain extent and it's used effectively and appropriately. Which brings me to my second point on the whole feasibility argument. Look, government just fiats the fact that, oh, big corporations are able to sweep all this under the rug. No, this is false. The fact that there's literally a movie about a rabbit telling you about the harms that happen to his body means that corporations cannot sweep everything under the rug. But also, we tell you that if corporation, like, you can't simply fiat that debate, fiat that argument, because then there will be no argument at all to respond with. Because my life, from my whole debating experience, would be so much easier if I can just say that corporations will be able to sweep it under the rug. The matter of the fact is they cannot. People have some form of power. The fact that we're talking about this already shows that there's some form of awareness. Lastly, on the fact of reliability, understand that their argument was entirely on the automatic effects that their whole high technology is going to have, like just amazing effectiveness, amazing reliability. But the reason I told you it was such a high burden or hard argument to try and prove is because that we don't understand how this technology even works in the first place. You have to be the ones to tell us the intrinsic nuances as to why this technology works and why it's going to work in a lot of other different circumstances. The same way you say that corporations will not follow the animal regulations is the same way that not all corporations will be able to use the same technology in order to help these animals in the first place. That is a huge hole in their whole mechanism, and you cannot simply let them pass with just an idealistic like mechanization of, hey, technology, right? And just very funnily, right? Animal clinical trials are effective. They're only able to be passed to humans when it is greenlit by medical testing corporations, stuff like that. Like, your worst case scenario is literally you using your computer simulation to take whatever you got to test it on the animals first and then test it on the humans because they want that extra safety precaution. Like, bro, I don't get it, right? So at the end of the day, this debate really comes down to, listen, we understand that there is a harm of animals being tested, but there are so many barriers of entry that we can't not afford to use it. Therefore, even if it is harmful to animals, one, your principal argument does not work. Humans have been carrying out atrocities for many decades. You have to prove that too. And also two, what was I gonna say? Whatever lah. Yeah, I end my speech. Thank you.
Okay, it has been 4 minutes and 17 seconds. I would like to thank the speaker for that speech. I should now call upon the Prime Minister from the government team to deliver their reply speech.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right, cool. All right, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. I think it's clear that opposition just overall never heard never heard our side, even from the Prime Minister side. Melson already gave out so much nuance as to how this our alternatives work. He showed you how there's no harm being done upon humans. He showed you how the medical scene already slowly shifting towards this, and that at the end of the day, we still be able to uphold our principles, right? This is a value judgment debate. And it's funny that even in debates like this, opposition can say things like, oh, we've been killing people for years, let's just keep doing it. The whole point of human race is to slowly evolve and actually become better. We actually have stopped world wars completely. Sure, civil wars still happen, but we're slowly calling out these atrocities. We're slowly moving to a world where we can, like live in global peace. And that sort of mercy and altruism should be shared towards these animals as well. Because the problem is, opposition never want to engage with you the principal argument that these animals also suffer pain. They never want to engage with you that these lives are valuable. They never want to concede this so far. The opposition will even try to like squirrel themselves out by saying things like, oh, we cater to both animals and the corporations by integrating both computer models and like animal testing. Animal testing will still cause harm. How are you even catering to anyone in the first place? It's atrocious. We already told you from the get-go that And the reason corporations do this, the reason why SafeRough even exists in the first place, is because of the malicious nature of corporations want to make as much money as they can, cut costs as much as they can to get all these benefits, right? We tell you that all the benefits that on their side are probable. If it's probable on both sides, why don't we go with a solution that does no harm? That does no harm to animals. If it's true that animals' lives are also valuable as much as us. So we showed already that we won the principal argument. I don't know why he says that we lost. We actually won the principal argument. But then they spent the entire speeches trying to mitigate all of the issues with our alternatives. They say things like, "Oh, we have regulations for animal testings." Safe Route was created because these regulations don't work. That it didn't. We didn't make the video because like, oh, it's working. We're making the video because it's not working. These regulations are not working. Fifi already told you this. I already told you this. They say that, oh, animal testing is effective. We show you already. Animals and anatomy is not the same as humans. We show to you already. Computer models can like you can quickly cut down the time that you need to invest in so much of these animals, right? We show to you that that using like the post-mortem human tissues with their consent, by the way, is similar to organ harvesting. Like you can get more accurate data. You get better results, you get better medicines, you get better vaccines. That's the reason why everyone's using it now. So why is opposition still defending animal testing? We tell you why. Because they think that the cutting costs is okay because everyone's killing each other. Everyone is profiting of each other. We should all do the same. No, like humans should actually, expand their mercy. That's what being human is all about at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, we are still the side that upholds the principle. We show to you our alternatives. But sure, by the way, debate is about being charitable, right? Sure. Even in that best case, that is high barriers of entry, it's very expensive. Only few companies can do this. We are okay. We're willing to trade that off because at the end of the day, it is about actually catering to his animals, right? And these values are so much important that we are actually willing to forego all of these profits that these corporate people can like take away because we believe that these values are important. Please save Ralph.
Replies which are for 4 minutes. Thank you. We have now come to the end of the debate. Debaters are asked to remain in this room while waiting for the adjudicators to make a decision. And adjudicators are reminded to move to the adjudicators discussion room in the Cisco WebEx via the link provided. With that, the House of Parliament is adjourned. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Okay, maybe we'll give you all like 1 minute to come back, get ready and everything. So we are going to announce the results. So, but normally how I would do this is I'll give you your feedback first, explain how both sides could have done better, and then I will announce the final results at the end. So, Gov and opposition, are all your team members in?
ETP is here.
Okay. Gov, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Haikal, you're back also? See. Yeah. Okay. So maybe I'll just start first. Okay. So first of all, I'd like to say that this is pretty average debate, but it's okay because normally at the beginning of competitions, it is normal for the first round, second round to be about an average or even a poor debate because at the end of the rounds, at the end of the prelims, you get better. So it's okay. So both teams have done all right. I would not say this is a good debate because the thing is, the whole point of this motion is that this house regrets the use of animals in science research. So meaning this motion itself is not a motion that requires you to give us a mechanism. This is a value debate. This is not really a policy debate where you have to give us alternatives or mechanisms or how you intend to you know how you want to sorry, how do you don't have to give me points about how you wish to address this animal rights. You don't have to give any of that. You just have to tell me whether the use of animals in research is beneficial or is it detrimental. That's all. So the problem is in government from the get-go they were going on and on about alternatives, which if let's say the motion is this house bans the use of animal in science research, then yes, alternatives would make for a very strong point. However, in this particular motion, I think the problem is that the government, especially the prime minister, did not give a very strong definition. So the thing is, I only got that the only definition I got is that every living thing deserves the right to live. Yes, but normally for a prime minister, you should define what does it mean by regret, what does it mean by animals, and what does it mean what does scientific research mean? You have to define all of this. The words itself is really important because it not only sets the tone for the debate, but it also explains to the opposition where your stand is. So for the government, the prime minister, you need to give us a clear definition and also a clear stakeholder because I noticed an absence of stakeholders in from the side government. We did not hear any points about who will be affected aside from animals and humans. But we need to. You should list down who will be the most impacted by this. So far I only hear that animals will endure suffering, but I did not hear whether who will this affect the most. So the thing to note is that government should give us a proper definition and a proper stakeholders. Status quo, very good. Characterization, okay, no problem with that. However, you also need to learn to engage with the opposition. So for government, almost all the speakers, except for the government whip, did not really engage with the opposition, whereas the opposition has been trying again and again to engage with you, and they even acknowledge some weak points in their debate. They are trying to give and take, you see, and that's really important in a debate because you cannot just have two sides not accepting, not give and taking, because if you do that, then we'll have a parallel debate, and then we will not be able to see the real outcome of a debate. So in this debate, this house regrets your job. You need to tell me, for government, why is it beneficial to carry out animal research, and opposition is supposed to tell me either why it is detrimental or tell me that there actually is no problem with animals, the use of animals in scientific research. But so the opposition decided to go with telling me how using of animal in scientific research is actually beneficial. It's fine, it's not a problem. But you should just remember that mechanism itself is not very important in the debate. From both sides, what I got is, on the side government, you give me alternatives, and you also give me that human values would be compromised. On side opposition, I got that the danger to human is real. There is significant danger, risk of danger to humans if we do not first test on animals. If we go straight to human testing, there will be complications. There will be a reduced sample size, compensation. The cost to corporations will be higher. And I also got animals are, well, you can say that animals are less important from side opposition, even though they didn't say that outright. The problem with side opposition is that they have contradicted themselves. At the beginning, the side opposition goes on and say that the leader of opposition says that yes, animals do have the right to live, but animals will also we need to do this animal testing, and that I think you mentioned how you admit that animal suffering is not is inevitable. Is that they will need to there will be some form of suffering, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on, let me just go through my notes. You talk about how there's regulations, and and what's this? Okay, so what I see from side opposition is that at the end, you talk about how you cater to humans, you cater to animals, you cater to corporations. Okay, so this is a problem because side opposition needs to actually take a stand and say that, okay, animal rights is not really as important as human rights. You cannot just say that you want to accept, you cannot just say that you want to take care of everyone, because that would be unfair to government, because government has to say that animal rights is more important than human rights. But the opposition is coming out and saying that the rights of animals, humans, and corporations has to be taken care of. That is not a very fair take, and it also shows that you are not very strong on your stance where animal research is important, even though yes, they will have to endure suffering, they will have to go through research. We don't. There's no choice. In fact, I would like to listen from opposition to tell me that that scientific research on living beings is inevitable. That there is no way around it. Even though the government has been going on about cell research, cell culture, and all that, and computer simulation, opposition is supposed to tell me that even though they did, you actually did tell me that at the beginning that if animal research, if computer simulation is so good, right? Why do we still have animal testing? That is a very good point, but there is not enough elaboration on that part. I would like to have heard why you. I would like to hear more elaboration on why we still because this is a good point to take down the government. Why do we still need animal research? Why is it still ongoing even though we have all this technology around us? Why that one point would be enough to take down all of the government's alternatives. So yeah, you mentioned it earlier, but you should also you should give a deeper level of analysis to that. So okay, so government's entire argument is a mechanism. Yeah, we talked about that. Okay, so government, you need to explain why it is harmful, why animal research is harmful, and opposition has no choice but to argue on the. So okay, so the one problem that I feel like this debate is average is because the government straight away goes to alternatives, which is mechanism. So in my view, opposition has no choice but to argue on the point of mechanism, because they are not able to. If they don't argue about mechanism, then it will be as if they are not engaging with government. So it is on the fault of the government that they did not talk about the values, about the beneficial and the effects of animal testing. They only talk about mostly about what they can do instead of animal testing, which doesn't really match the definition, the motion of today's round. So yes, I accept that the moral high ground goes to government. I think no one can argue that moral high ground goes to the government, but opposition is supposed to come out and say to accept that even though the moral high ground does go to the government, that that there are actually other benefits that are more significant in today's world, and just accept that you cannot have the moral high ground. But you came up and said that the moral high ground is on side opposition because you take care of government, you take care of animals, humans, and corporations, which again and that is a contradiction in itself already. So it's like you cannot take care of all of them if you want to have the moral high ground. So okay, Carl, do you have anything to add before I announce the results?
Not really, since you already wrap up everything.
Okay. So, one last thing I want to talk about is that when you come up and talk about costs and labor, just note that that is not very significant in this debate because this is not a policy debate. We do not really care about how the cost, labor, and all that is how it impacts the use of animals or humans in this research. So this debate is really just a value debate. You're just supposed to tell me the effects, whether good or bad, on the stakeholders, which the government should elaborate more on. At the end of the day, the government just wants to use alternatives to prevent suffering to animals, while the opposition wants to protect every being, including animals, corporations, and humans. So that is what I got from this debate. So with that, I give the win to side opposition. So thank you very much, everyone. And also I would give the highest marks, the best speaker, to the opposition, the leader of opposition. So congratulations. If you would like to come for personal feedbacks, you may do so. You can stay back at the end of this thing, or you may proceed to back to the Cisco WebEx room. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. At Chaika, do you want to say anything?
No, it's okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.